I spent the past week or so in reflection with some people about a very rough topic, our failures. See, we work together. We volunteer in an organization that does some of the that addresses some of the more difficult and intractable injustices that are here in New York City. And we've had some real successes, and we're also living with some of our awful failures, and this hurts. And as we were talking about as we were talking about our failures, I had to reflect on my own failures. Times when my instincts as a leader led me and us, and then my instincts turned out to be wrong. Not all of them, but some, and it mattered. And I hate being wrong. And for a while, I just kept doubling down as you do. It's the American way. Stick to your wrongness because that's how we model leadership. And then I realized that my own mistakes had consequences and people deserved an apology, which I had to humble myself to tender and did with embarrassment, to be honest, but without qualification. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. It's been rough. And I was thinking about that as I sat with our text today, asking this question: what will Jesus find when he comes? How will Jesus feel about what he encounters in our churches, in our seats of government, in our homes, in our spaces for justice? Would Jesus be pleased? Would he be proud? Would he thank us? Or would he look around him for whatever he could gather into his hands to fashion a whip of cords and drive some things out? What would Jesus find in so many of the houses of worship and places of work that are erected in his name? What would he find? We know that when Jesus came to the temple in Jerusalem, he was a pilgrim coming for worship in the days before the Passover. And the writer of John tells us that Jesus was displeased. He saw the bodies being sold in the temple yard. He saw the money changing hands. He saw and was viscerally revolted by the ways in which the people had turned his Abba's house into a marketplace. And in the tradition of the prophets before him, I think especially of Jeremiah and Ezekiel, Jesus had not only harsh words, but a physical reaction to what he encountered instead of encountering the worship experience he had come for. And the story of Jesus turning out the money changers shows up in every one of the Gospels. It's that important. But the John text is the richest and most descriptive, I think. And one of the things I especially love about this text is how it describes the scene of what Jesus saw and found when he showed up to see just what the cult of worship was, what the state of the cult of worship was. And it was something, but it wasn't of him. It wasn't of his Abba. And so it was so dangerous that he had to get everyone up out of there. And they hated him for it. And you do realize that this would get him executed. And of course, he would know that, of course. But what he saw was so wrong, so out of pocket, so harmful that he had to do something. And I was in conversation with some Jewish friends recently who very recently celebrated the festival of Purim. And as you may know, Purim recounts the rescue of the Jews from their oppressor who had plotted to exterminate them wholesale. And as the story goes, Queen Esther, in an act of incredible courage, stands up for her people and rescues them. Queen Esther got it right. But as the story also goes, it seems that up until that point, Queen Esther did not have a particularly compelling history as a leader. She had made lots of mistakes, and she assumed the position of queen only after her predecessor, Queen Vashti, refused her husband and would not be summoned to the court. And the king then took Vashti's crown and put it on Esther's head. And as the rabbi said, the crown was put on Esther's head, but it did not fit. And Esther was not a particularly good leader until she was. She had to look at her mistakes and learn from them. Looking at our mistakes and learning from them is not exactly a common practice. And the temple doesn't turn into a marketplace without a series of failures taking place first, right? Because leaders continued to fail their people. They doubled down, they surely lied, they enriched themselves with the selling of bodies in the place of worship in the name of sacrifice. And Jesus was having none of that, and they hated him for it. What will Jesus find when he comes and sees what is happening in his name right now? Will he find leaders with cult followings who double down on their failures? Will he find leaders who can't own up to their mistakes, who blame their mistakes on someone else, who lie about the deaths around us, who put their hands on whoever they want, who obscure the truth, who lead us into a cult of death rather than a community of justice and love? Will Jesus find this? Because I think he will. And let me just say, leaders who double down on the ways we fail our people are headed into a collision course with Jesus. It's not a good look. It's not a good plan. And Jesus is very clear on this point. But, and there is a but, there is a course correction. There is a path to redemption. It requires self-examination. It requires penitence, sincerely saying, I'm sorry. And it requires moving on. It requires looking around, or maybe even looking in the mirror and seeing if there are things in our surroundings that don't fit. And as the rabbi put it, like Esther and Vashti before her, maybe it means casting aside a crown that never fit. Only then do we step into our truth and right our wrongs and be who God put us on this planet to be. And who and what is that? It's quite simple. We are called to be a blessing. That's why we're here. Just a blessing. It's that simple. But you and I will fail at this. We do fail at it. Sometimes we fail miserably. But our job is to recognize it, rectify it, and then move on to do right, just to try. And I want to submit to you that as you do your own work of self-examination this Lent, of course you will find things that you don't like. But don't dwell there. Name it and claim it. Apologize for it where appropriate, and then keep moving. How many times did the leaders of the temple look around and say, this isn't right, and then not do anything? But here's what you have to remember about that, is that in Jesus's rebuke, it's not like he ended them. He didn't murder his enemies. He didn't go to physical war with them as people expected the Messiah to do. He could have done any of those things. But what he offered instead was a moment of examination and then a chance and a path to redemption. He was specific about what needed to change, and he gave them that chance. They had the chance to be a blessing, and they failed because they wouldn't listen to Jesus, and then it didn't work out. A very different enemy would destroy that temple in times to come. The Gospel of John was actually written in that setting. And this is what God does. When God offers a critique or a rebuke, God always gives a chance to course correct. And we have this chance too. Right now, we can decide that we too will be a blessing, or at least we can try. And I just want to say to you, I see you trying. I see you trying. Thank you. Thank you for trying. It's not always going to work, but at least you're trying. And I was in a group the other day that taught me a new song. And I'm not going to sing it because I never quite got the tune just right. But the leader who taught it to us shared that she learned the song as part of what's called a transformation choir. And transformation choirs around the country stand at the bedside of people making the transition from life to death in hospice care. And these choirs go to these hospice beds and they sing songs that they write for this holy work. One such song was written by Kate Munger, and these are the words. In these hands, great blessing. From these hands, great healing. All around, all around, all around these hands, peace. What would it take to bring Jesus joy? I think it's living our lives like that song. Being a blessing, using our hands to bring peace, uniting with others to do something, sing a new song, give blessing a try. Because the truth is that everything you need to please our God is at your disposal. Fear not. The way to be a blessing is within every soul's grasp. Take a look at your hands and see your perfect instruments for peace. And one day soon, your hands can grasp another person's hands. And hands across this country and planet can grasp one another and bring each other peace. We are so close to being able to hold someone's hand again. So close. And that's what worship should look like in the temple. I'm going to close with a poem that they shared in this group I was telling you about. It's called Nothing So Wise, and it was written by Jean Lohman. There is nothing so wise as a circle. Prayer is circumference we may not reach around, space for all we cannot hold, the rim of love toward which we lean. Let me read that to you one more time. There is nothing so wise as a circle. Prayer is circumference we may not reach around, space for all we cannot hold, the rim of love toward which we lean. And for this season, lean into the wisdom of the circle. Reach around to another. Recognize you can't hold it all. But what you can do is love. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus, for showing us how to love. Amen.